Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today, I've got the fabulous Courtney with me, and it is a catch-up because I spoke to her last year. Not too hard to catch up, but a catch-up on where she's been, what she's been doing. I love her Instagram, all right? I just told her I wasn't going to big her up, but I am going to, and I wanted to do it for real. It is an amazing Instagram feed, and if you haven't started to follow, you really should, because it's just an excellent feed. Anyway, Courtney, hello. How's your year been?
Hi, how's it going? Thanks so much for having me back. It's nice to talk with you. My year has been good. It's been a little crazy and busy. I don't even know where to start. So much has been going on.
Well, I've got a question to start because it's one of those things that's doing the rounds at the moment. So just to put us in a perspective where it's June 2024, because these things are evergreen. I mean, you could be watching from the future, and in your spaceship wondering, what's all this about? Well, at the moment, doing the rounds is the sardine challenge. So what's that about?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I had no intention of doing a sardine challenge. I have even said like a couple months ago after I did a dairy-free stint, I'm like, please don't let me do any more challenges. If I say I'm doing something, like remind me, like, no, I don't need to do that. But I did this live YouTube chat with Greg from the RV Carnivore. And I didn't know we were going to talk about his sardine thing that he was on. And just the way he was like talking about things, I'm like, gosh, like, I wonder if I need to try this. Like, really being able to tap into your hunger cues, because I've been struggling with emotional eating lately, and you're not going to eat sardines if you're not truly hungry. I mean, some people love them, but I do not like love them. I tolerate them, and I found a really good brand that I can tolerate the best. But that's all I can say about that. They're just super nutritious. So when he was talking about like using this as like, this is his medicine and this and that, I'm like, gosh, like maybe I should try that. And so I started it, and I asked anybody on YouTube that wanted to, try it with me. And, Dr. Boz is the one that kind of like pioneered this a while ago. So, watching some of her videos, and yeah, we did it, and it felt amazing. And I didn't have a good exit plan for when I was going to be done. So I kind of went on a little carnivore spiral after that. But when I was on them, it felt really good. And it's funny because a couple days ago, and I never know when these like articles are coming out about me unless somebody tells me, but someone's like, oh, I saw you in the Daily Mail. I'm like, oh gosh, let me go look. And it was an article about like carnivore in general, but like the headline was, mother of two eats only sardines for 10 days. So I'm like, oh gosh, okay. So now this is newsworthy. So yeah. So it was an interesting challenge. I definitely learned a lot.
What were the results?
My glucose went down, like great glucose numbers. My ketones went up. I think the highest at one point was like 3.4. And they're just very satiating. Like you're allowed to eat as much as you want. So I wasn't tracking macros and trying to hit anything, but I was aware of how much I was eating, and it was probably like 800 calories, but I felt good and satiated. If I were to eat only 800 calories of beef, like it wouldn't feel like enough. So there's something magical about these little fish. And for me, it was just, yes, part of it was trying to lose a little weight before I went to Keto Con, but I was just trying to like reel in my eating habits, because I have kind of fallen off where I'm eating to ease my stress. So I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm going to binge on sardines. So I just felt great. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about true hunger. Like if I'm not hungry enough to eat sardines, yes, I can eat something else. But if I'm not truly hungry to eat sardines, then maybe I don't need to eat that. Like, am I hungry, or do I just want to like eat a bag of pork rinds because I'm bored or I'm sad or something? So there's a lot of self-awareness that came with it. But like I said, I didn't have an exit plan. And the next day, like I ate 5 carnivore bars in one sitting, and that's like 2,000 calories. And then I ate all my other meals. And then, so yeah, I learned a lot that you need to like ease back into it. And then, I mean, the whole emotional eating is a whole other topic in itself. But yeah, it was interesting. And I would definitely kind of recommend maybe like like Dr. Boz recommends 3-day fast. But I would definitely recommend just adding them into your diet in general. You don't have to just only eat them for days, but just incorporating them because they're so nutritious.
Yeah, I think you summed it up in one sentence. I even took a note there. You're not going to eat sardines unless you are truly hungry. I like that. That's really good. I know we're not overly bothered about weight as such, as more body composition and health and all that sort of stuff, but people always want to know the numbers. So did you lose X amount of pounds, and did you put them all back on once you went back to normal eating, or did you have a residue where you'd actually lost some body fat and maybe waved goodbye to it permanently?
Yeah, I lost 6.1 pounds. I did lose 1% of body fat. But like I said, I kind of went off the rails after that. So I have gained it all back. And honestly, I haven't weighed myself in a few days. I probably weigh more than when I started, So yeah, I definitely could have done better. But I mean, that's a whole other mindset thing that I'm struggling with right now.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons I've asked you back is because I love your honesty. And in fact, everyone I get on, I try to be as honest as possible. And I include myself in this. So you mentioned that you wanted to lose a little bit of weight for Keto Con. And I totally get that, because you're standing in front of people and you want to be the absolute example. And you also mentioned stress. So we'll come back to the stress and emotional eating. But let's first talk about Keto Con. What happened there?
Yeah, so I did a cooking demo, a recipe from my new upcoming cookbook that comes out in October. I cooked carnivore biscuits and gravy for everybody. And it was a hit. It was fun. It was fun to see everybody. But yeah, I mean, that's what my battle is lately, is like trying to get rid of these last 10 to 15 pounds. And I find myself just gaining and losing the same pounds over and over again. So the sardines were in part to like, okay, let's try and get like some of this weight off before Keto Con. And I mean, it didn't totally work since I ate everything in sight after it. But yeah, Keto Con was amazing. It's so fun to see like all your internet friends in person. A lot of people I had already met before, so that was nice to see them, but a lot of people I haven't. Like that was my first time meeting Bella from Steak and Butter Gal, and I had no clue how tall she was. And yeah, it's just fun to like see everybody that you see online, and then, meet people in your community that aren't necessarily influencers, but just that eat this way and they follow us. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, you've made me smile there, because Bella is super tall. I've never met her face to face actually, but I did talk to her about her parents, and I think her mother is a basketball player anyway, so there's probably tall genes in the family there. But I recently did the PHC conference in London, and I was gobsmacked, that's an English expression, like how big Ken Berry was, and Chafee, and then even Dave Feldman really surprised me, So either I'm really small or they're all tall. I don't know. And it's always good when you meet these people in the flesh. You also talked at a retreat as well, didn't you? What happened there?
Yeah, we had this retreat called MeatStock, and it was in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. And actually, that we're doing another one next year, same area, different cabin in May. So yeah, it was a bunch of us, and it was like this huge cabin, like a mansion cabin with a bunch of beds. There was probably like, I don't know, 30 to 50 of us. And there was 2 different retreats that were back to back. So a lot of us speakers like overlapped it. So it was me and Dr. Baker, Kelly Hogan, Dr. Kiltz, Michelle Hearn, Serena. I mean, just like so many people. Like it was Sally Norton, she's a firecracker, by the way. So it was just so awesome, because when you do these normal like conventions, it's like you see them and then you go about the rest of your day, you go to your hotel room, you sleep. But it's like you're sharing a house with all these people. So interesting conversations come from when you wake up in the morning and are having a cup of coffee on the balcony. So it's just definitely like a more intimate experience than being like at a convention center. And yeah, I highly recommend them. It just makes you feel a lot closer to these like-minded people.
Yeah, I think meeting with people. I spoke at a meeting in Easter, and it was just really great. Firstly, talk to people that have followed you and they've come up and they're very nice, and then also to talk to other people that are presenting. It's really good. It's interesting you mentioned coffee there. My brain is always, let's talk about that. But I've got a plan that I want to talk to you about, because the reason I follow you is because of the challenges and your honesty. So I do want to get to the no dairy challenge, which absolutely resonated with me completely and utterly, because when I did a thing with Coach Raymond, when we were talking about fasting and feasting, I needed to put on a lot of weight. So I went straight to the dairy, straight to the yogurt, straight to put on 27 pounds over 6 weeks. Not eating bad food, but just proving to people that dairy, too many caffeinated coffees, and dark chocolate was the other one, can be your downfall, because a lot of people I coach, they just don't believe that these little things, which seem little until you add them up. And then, if I do a mood and food diary with them, they're like, wow, I can't believe how much coffee I've drunk. I can't believe how much cream that must be. I can't believe how many yogurts I'm having. So I did it. And I put on 27 pounds in 6 weeks and did lose it by just taking those things out, by the way. So why did you do the no dairy challenge? What brought that on for you?
Yeah, once again, I was, trying to get to my goal weight, and I feel like I'm a little desperate right now in trying all the things. I had done no dairy 30 days a couple times. So I did Lion Diet and BBBE each for a month. I didn't technically follow them like Lion Diet. By week 3, I was like adding in other animals, but I did the no dairy for the full 30 days for both of them. And I lost weight with both of those. This time around, I noticed I was transferring my dairy addiction. Like my thing at the time, like I was like chugging heavy cream. So it's like dairy in recipes, I'm fine. I can moderate. Cheese slices, yes, they're delicious, but I can moderate those. But for me, I was tasting the sweetness in heavy cream, and I was literally drinking it out of the bottle, like when I was stressed, when I was happy. I mean, whatever, it like became like my pacifier. So my thing was to like, I'm like, I need to get myself off of this heavy cream habit. So I did 30 days no dairy. But then I realized that I was transferring that onto like other foods. So now instead of, turning to the bottle of dairy, I was having like too much, pork rinds or bacon. For me, it's always like the processed carnivore foods. So that just made me realize, okay, so yes, someone can get fat on dairy, but for me, it was like getting to the deeper rooted issues. Like, why am I turning to this dairy? Because it's not necessarily just the dairy that's making me fat. It's my habits, and also having like excess calories that I don't need. So yeah, I've learned, I've lost 55 pounds while having dairy. So I definitely don't want to like demonize dairy. I think in small amounts, once in a while, like it can be totally fine. But for me, it had just become a crutch. And I was easing my sorrows. Instead of using a bottle of whiskey like I used to do, I've been turning to a bottle of cream. So.
And you snuck in there that you lost 55 pounds with dairy. So do you want to just recall that amount of weight loss, how you did that?
Yeah. So the first 45 pounds were gone in like 10 months or so. I kept it very simple. I wasn't doing, too many like recipes at the time. I just kept it basic. Lots of burger patties, some raw kefir, some raw cheese, eggs. Like it was just easy. And then I stalled for a while, and mainly because I stopped tracking, and I was just eating too much, like all the processed snacks and whatnot. And then I got back on track, lost another 10, still having some dairy. And so right now that's where I am. I lost that 10 like 6 months ago, and I've just been gaining and losing the same 5 pounds since. And I know what I need to do. I just haven't been doing it. And I've been in a kind of a state where it's like, I don't care. Like having a bowl of like pork rind cereal when I'm not totally hungry, but I'm like, I don't care. I want it. So it's definitely, I'm kind of going through some like addiction things in a way. And it's a dopamine thing. I just got the book Dopamine Nation. I haven't read it yet, but I'm hoping that's going to help me find other ways to, raise my dopamine or get those dopamine hits from things other than food.
Yeah, I think this is really fascinating. So you said you did it in 10 months. For those people that don't know you, when did you actually go carnivore to lose this, what subsequently became 55 pounds? When did you start?
I started 2 years ago, May 10th. So I just had my 2-year carniversary, and yeah.
May 10th, 2 years ago. Yeah. So what actually made you go carnivore then? Sorry, I know we've gone off track now, but I'm just fascinating. Just for the people that don't really know you, what prompted you to try carnivore?
Yeah, so before carnivore, I was on and off keto for like 7 or 8 years. So I had just recently lost 50 pounds after my second baby, for like probably like the third time I've gained and lost 50 pounds. So lost 50 pounds, and I decided to stop doing what was working for me. I got caught up in the anti-diet culture, influencers saying all foods fit, everything's on the table, eat everything in moderation. And I'm like, oh, great. Yes, this is amazing. I'm going to have croissants and lose weight because there aren't such thing as bad foods. Well, when you're a sugar addict or a carb addict or whatever, some of us need to abstain and we can't moderate. So I went on a 4-month bender, essentially, a 4-month binge. I gained 40 pounds and I just felt like crap. I woke up, felt exhausted. My skin was awful. My mental health was at its worst. And my husband was sending me Dr. Paul Saladino's TikToks for like a month, and we didn't talk about it. And finally one day I'm like, why are you sending me these? Like, should we not be eating vegetables? I'm like, this is so weird. He's like, I don't know. I need to do research. So he hops on YouTube University and does his research. He's like, I think we should try this. So I'm like, okay. So for me, starting this was just for weight loss. I didn't follow any influencers, so I didn't know all the health benefits that could come along with it. I think I always equated a healthy body weight meant you're healthy. So I didn't even think about anything else but weight loss. And the weight started coming off. My mental health got better. I was able to go off of my Zoloft. I've had acne like since I was a teenager. I can remember being 13 and getting acne cream. So my skin cleared up and I just felt really good. And I had no clue that like all those things were going to come my way. No one ever asked me what my diet was like when I was getting prescribed Zoloft. Nobody asked me what my diet was like when they were giving me acne creams. No one talked about how diet could affect the rest of you, which is so crazy when you think about it, that I never even realized that. Like it's, you wouldn't put diesel in a car that takes regular gas, so why are we putting things in our body that aren't really food?
Yeah. And when you say it like that, it's so obvious. Sadly, we are saturated, no pun intended, with terrible misinformation about things like saturated fat and red meat. And a lot of us fall for it. I fell for it until I got to age 50. So with my sums, as we're doing this live, I don't edit these videos. So it seems like you lost over 100 pounds in total. You lost like 50 at keto and then sort of 50-ish with carnivore. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Well, but I gained it back. So yeah, I lost 50 with keto, gained it back, lost it again. So this is the only thing that has actually worked for me to keep it off. So I've essentially like maintained this weight loss now for over a year, which was never the case. I mean, instantly when I was keto, when I would lose the weight, I would instantly gain it right back. But those keto treats had a hold on me.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll be interested in your views on the book, Dopamine Nature, because dopamine has a role to play. And it's like with all these things, when we talk about hormones, we talk about insulin, blood glucose, whatever we talk about, it's always like they're bad things, bad agents in our body. But actually, it's never that. It's always the disproportionate amount, or elevated, constantly elevated, or not dealing with your emotions in the first place. I mean, no one has ever said to me, I smoke for my health. They smoke because they are addicted, or they have some other thing that they're trying to get their mind away from. So I think you're absolutely right to be looking into the deeper issues. That was the phrase you used, the deeper issues. So what's your initial thoughts about the deeper issues of people being addicted and doing the wrong thing, even though they know it's the wrong thing?
I don't know. I mean, that's what I got to figure out, because it's just so crazy, because I see my husband and his behaviors where he's a moderator, like he eats this way, but he can have something off plan and get right back at it. It doesn't cause him to binge. He doesn't even give it another thought. He just gets back on track. And so our brains are definitely very different, because if I went off track, I would just spiral into a binge. So it's just very interesting to see how different people are. And I think people that have never experienced addiction don't totally understand it, and they dismiss food addiction. But unless you've been there, like, it's a wild ride. And I definitely think, you know, it feels, even food and carb and sugar addiction feels exactly the same as like alcohol. You know, I'm 3 years sober. There's a reason why I don't drink, because I can't moderate my alcohol either. And I find, you know, the same behaviors I had with alcohol, I would have like towards food. Like, it's the same exact thing. And some people don't believe that, but I think the people that don't believe it, like, haven't been there. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to observe. And I'm hoping I can figure it out. But I don't know. I think when you're an addict, you're always an addict. And it's just, you're just waking up each day and choosing to be better. Like, an alcoholic is, you're always going to be an alcoholic. You're just waking up and deciding to be sober that day. So I think those tendencies always stay with you, and they might jump to something else. You know, you see everybody at AA, they're outside smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee. So they've transferred their alcoholic addiction onto something else. So maybe it's just about like finding a healthy addiction. Like, if only I could get addicted to going to the gym, that would be fabulous, but I just don't love it. So working on healthy addictions, I think, would probably be the best benefit.
Yeah, that's a really good example. But as a, you know, one of the strings to my bow is I'm an advanced personal trainer, and you would be surprised. I have people that are in the gym too much and overtraining. So if you're an addictive personality, you can be addicted to something healthy and still do it too much, you know, and it's quite frightening. I think one of the things, maybe it's a bit more basic, you know, you'll do all your research. I love the fact that you said YouTube University, by the way. I thought that was very funny. Maybe it'll end up being that there is a phenotype, but whether you're an abstainer or you're a moderator. And that's it. Maybe, you know, it'll all just loop back to, like you say, day by day, just being that sort of person. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the answer. And I've been doing this a long time. I've 15 years in rehab and doing the bloods and all that sort of stuff. I think this way of eating just makes the terrain easier, and it's simpler and clearer. There's less brain fog. There's less inflammation. There's less joint pain, there's less problem with blood glucose. So I think carnivores can do these sort of biohacks and try to get to nitty gritty. And I think you will get there, Courtney. I really do. I think you'll come back maybe in a year, 2 years and say, right, I've cracked it for me. And then I'll interview you, and that will help so many people, which is the whole point of these things. We haven't got anything to sell. We're just talking about health, and we're trying to spread the word. And there are people out there that are not doing that. They're getting paid by the American Beverage Association or whatever to push things. We haven't come on with a product to say, this is great, this is great. We're trying to actually get to the bottom of it. I mean, you don't get commission from a book called The Dopamine Nature. It's just, we're talking about it. I would say the thing about people in the public eye that are doing this, people think we're going to be perfect. I mean, I've had that. I've had clients say to me, oh, it must be really easy for you. But no, it's not easy. That's why I got into this, because I bought into the high carb thing. I can put weight on like that, and I can get emotional, and I can get, you know, exhausted and think, well, I know I'm trying to be an example, but I would really like X food today. Like, so yesterday, but I didn't do it. That's the other thing. So yesterday we were out, we're doing a thing. It's very British, called Open Gardens, where, you know, a street of people open up their gardens, and you can just walk in and give money to a charity that they've all decided. And you just look at their gardens, right? So it's just like 20 different gardens. Go and have a look. And it was a beautiful day. And I thought, I wouldn't mind sitting in that pub and just having a cold Coca-Cola and look at the view, you know, but I didn't. But it was there. It definitely was a thing. Now, that's what I used to do 15 years ago. That would be the thing I go to. So I know that I am definitely not a moderator. I have to abstain, because I think I would have liked it too much. And that's what you're saying about the dopamine. And, you know, I would have felt really guilty as well, because I would be, you know, tonight I'm doing a live question and answer, and I'm going to be honest and say, yeah, you'll get tempted. And you do have to have a bit of willpower. And that's one of the things I think has been wrong in the carnivore space. There is an element of willpower for some people, definitely. they do have to abstain. How do you feel about that? Is that true?
Yeah. And you know what? A lot of these people are sharing, like they've already got to their goal and they're like, here, I look amazing. I feel amazing. This is what I did. And a lot of us are, still like what I call like in the messy middle. So, yes, I've had a lot of successes, but I'm in the messy middle right now and I'm sharing it, which it kind of feels weird at times because I feel like, okay, because I'm on here sharing my journey that, I need to be a quote unquote expert when I'm not. Like, I'm just a normal person that's going through this too. I just happen to be sharing it online. So yeah, there's kind of like a weirdness with that. But yeah, as far as, wanting to have that Coca-Cola, like, yeah, there are times where it gets a little hard, but I feel like eating this way makes it easier and it calms down the food noise a little bit because I went 18 months without like any issues. So me having some struggles right now is new, which I'm going to have to watch the replay because I remember Dr. Baker saying something at Keto Con, like the honeymoon phase ends after like a year and a half. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what's like going on for me. So yeah, there is a little willpower that has to be there and determination and just remembering your why. Like, why are you eating this way? Why are you doing this? Having one thing off plan, if you're an abstainer, isn't going to serve you well. So I feel like a lot of self-awareness comes with this way of eating. And it really does help with some of the food noise because yeah, you might have some cravings, but you need to have a plan. What are you going to do when you get those cravings?
Yeah, Sean is full of wisdom and he sums things up in a couple of sentences that take me about a paragraph and a half to get across. And that's very true. I think when you start Carnivore, and I get this with all the people I coach, it's euphoria at the beginning. It's like, wow, I've got the golden ticket. This is it. This really works. The weight drops off. And yes, some of it is water weight. We know that. But the brain fog goes and the skin gets better, as you mentioned for yourself. And it's satiating. It's tasty. You're not hungry all the time. And it does seem amazing. But of course, your body is very adaptive and it's got lots of emotional baggage. And it's things, for me, I always use the example of whenever I went to the movies, I did still want to have a hot dog and a Coke. That was a thing because that was my association with that experience. That it's not a movie without, a hot dog or some popcorn and Coke. And I now realise that that's just sort of been indoctrinated, and I can do the whole movie. In fact, when you look at the whole thing, why do you have to eat and drink when you're watching a movie? That's just how you've been trained. Why do you need to do that? I don't think I've ever sat down with a book and thought, right, I'm going to read a book now and I'm going to eat and drink halfway through. You just don't do it. So the messy middle is excellent. It just reminds me, sorry, I've gone off track. I don't normally rabbit like this, but I love speaking to you because you have some good language. And when I did my English literature degree, that my tutor said to me about writing a book, he said, don't think it's a beginning, middle and end. It's a beginning, muddle and end. And I think that's life. You have a beginning and then it's the muddle bit that makes it interesting and you have to get through. So it's all well and good going on Carnivore and it all turning out great, but you are going to have some life struggles. You're going to have, I don't know, you can't pay your mortgage or your boss has changed and they're not particularly nice, whatever it is. And I think that's when it becomes a little bit different because it's all been plain sailing, but your kids might be playing up at school or whatever it is. And that is, I think, when it becomes a little bit, you're a bit vulnerable to maybe going back to your old ways where you used to cope. And you talked about emotional eating there. I mean, could you give a little bit more on the emotional eating side of things?
Yes. So, in hindsight, it started probably like about 6 months ago at the 1.5 year mark. I noticed I was reaching to food, even if it was carnivore, to ease my stress. And instead of just dealing with my emotions, like how uncomfortable does it sound to like think about, oh, when you're feeling a certain way, just sit there and feel that feeling. I'm like, oh, like, no, like that, I'm going to go numb out with food. I mean, I can't have a drink. I can't go have a cocktail. So I'm going to choose food. And I've noticed that, I reach for that when I'm stressed, I guess. It's not so much like happy celebrating and I have that stuff. It's more so like I get like overstimulated maybe by, my kids. I have 2 little kids at home and, they might see this one day. So it's not their fault, but I'm an introvert and I'm an only child. So being around my kids and people like all day long, it can be overstimulating for me. So sometimes I just I really feel like I'm like going like this, and I go to the kitchen and I will drink cream, or I'll grab a carnivore bar, or I'll do something where I'm like, okay, why am I doing this? Like, why am I feeling the need to turn to food when I'm feeling a certain way? And then it's kind of like you start it and then you kind of like spiral. It's like you don't care. Like, I know I shouldn't be eating, like lately what I've been having is yogurt with flavored protein, which I haven't done any sweeteners this whole time. But I've been adding a little bit of that with some pork rinds on it. So it's almost like yogurt and like carnivore granola. And I've been having that when I'm not hungry because it tastes good. And that sweetness from the stevia is, lighting a switch in my brain, and I won't be hungry and I'll have more, so it's like I'm trying to find this joy in food, and I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. Like, I tell anybody, like, if you have a craving, like, go distract yourself. That craving's going to go away. They even say, I think it's like a 30 to 45 minute cycle when you have a craving. Like, go distract yourself, go for a walk, go exercise, go do this, make sure you're eating enough, have a bite of butter, have a pinch of salt on your tongue, have a bubbly water, like all these things so you don't go and eat. And I know all this and I'm like, I don't even care. And I'm going to do it anyways. So that's kind of what I've been battling the last like 6 months. And I know Jen from Delighted to Meet You, she's been struggling too. So we've been chatting about this, and we'll probably do a video together about it, because we're both, I mean, she's turning to non-carnivore foods, but we're both turning to foods to like ease something that's going on. And it's frustrating and it's annoying because I know, I'm so close to my goal. It's like, why am I doing this? Why am I self-sabotaging myself? I know if I stick to these certain macros, I will get to my goal. It works when I stick to them. But some days I track macros and it's like, oh, I'm at my macros, but I don't care. I'm going to eat this anyways. So that's what I'm working on right now, is like really getting to the root. Like, why am I doing the I don't care, I'm going to eat this anyway thing? So that's where I'm hoping this book's going to come into play, and just finding like healthier habits instead of trying to numb out with food, like going for a walk. I need to get back to the cold plunge. Like, that was super helpful. Going to the gym, lifting heavy weights. There's so many other better things to do than turning to food, and I just haven't been doing it. And it's so frustrating that it's like I just feel a little out of control lately is what it is. I feel out of control. And my plan, I do have a plan. I mean, this is going to be the 5th time that I'm trying to reel it back in. But I have a friend that's going to be my accountability buddy, and we're going to text each other every day starting Tuesday. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow's actually my birthday. So I don't want to track macros. I want to like go have a nice steak dinner and not worry about macros. But Tuesday, I am getting back at it. And I guess I'm saying this on here too, to hold me accountable. So Tuesday, June 11th is when I'm back on track. And hopefully, a few months from then, I'll finally be at my goal. Hopefully.
I muted myself there, so there's a little gap. How strange. I just wanted to let you speak there. Your birthday tomorrow, did you say? So how old are you, Courtney?
I will be 40 tomorrow.
Oh, well, it's a big birthday, isn't it? Right.
It is.
The accountability buddy. I mean, this is one of the things I do. I do a live question and answer session on a Sunday night. I do an hour and a half with co-host Richard Smith, and I do one on Monday, and we also do one on Tuesday. And I'm trying to do every night because I think people do need that accountability. I know you're doing like a one-to-one. So if anyone's watching, they can join our school community, and they'll get that Monday night live question and answer Sunday and all that, and support from everyone else. I think support is really really key for a lot of people to feel that they're with like-minded people doing the same thing, or, you know, even going through the same issues or struggles, and having someone you're accountable to is amazing. I give out, everyone I coach, I give out my personal WhatsApp, and they can send pictures of what they're eating, even if it's bad, you know, and just that thought that, oh, I've got to send this to Stephen is enough sometimes to stop them. And they'll say, that's enough. It stopped me.
Yeah, and that's so true. And isn't that so weird? I was just talking about this. I'm like, I can't do this for myself. I cannot like be on my own and hold myself accountable, but I can do it for her. Like that doesn't like mentally, that just doesn't seem right. But yes, when I was working with coaches before, knowing they could see my food tracker, like they had access to my macro tracker, knowing they were watching really kept me on track because I didn't want them to see me like overeating, you know? So it's just interesting. Like, why can't I do that for myself? Like I should be able to take care of myself like that. But it's so true. Like we need that accountability, but it's like, why? You know, to like dig deeper.
Yeah, no, there's definitely something deeper. I know there's T-shirts out there like "Dance Like Nobody's Watching," you know, and if you're in the car and you hear a song, you're belting it out, but you wouldn't do that, you know, with your auntie sitting in the back, or maybe not with the same amount of gusto. So I think, yeah, I mean, there's definitely something about another person watching or another person talking to you, and you don't want to let them down. I try to play on that when people, especially like animal lovers, pet lovers, I say, you know, would you feed your dog something that is going to be deleterious to your dog? Oh, no, not at all. I'm like, right, well, you need to treat yourself like you're treating your dog. And that's the truth. And I think it is fascinating. And, you know, it's beyond the scope of this little half hour we're doing to talk about that. But Courtney, I think it's really, really fascinating, the accountability side. So, I mean, I do that. I've probably got at the moment about 10 people doing mood and food diaries via WhatsApp. And one's been doing it for over a year. And I've said, look, you know, I'm happy to do it. I don't charge for that bit. I coach them. They're happy and they're at a good weight. And I just said, you know, Mark, you don't need to do this. And like, I really do. I really do. So I think that's the thing. Maybe we need just a little bit of outside influence to keep us on track. And maybe that's just a human thing. I don't know. Maybe that's a trait that we want to be a good example. I'm sure this goes into sort of like parenthood, because I think when your kids are around, you don't want to be seen in a way that they wouldn't like. I think there's a lot more to like the pack mentality of humans and groups and stuff. But anyway, that's a bit deep for this. Right. I've answered, you've answered all the questions. There was one thing I wanted to say about coffee, by the way, because I feel for many people, it isn't coffee, it's the vehicle for cream for a lot of people is the actual issue. So they'll say, have 6 cups of coffee. Well, that's sometimes 6 tablespoons of cream for some people. So there is more to coffee and certainly more to caffeine as well than maybe we've touched on. Was there anything you wanted to share, or do you feel like we've summed up your year so far?
Yeah, I think we've pretty much summed it up. I mean, the only thing I would add is I think part of the stress that I've had that I'm numbing out with food was my cookbook. So we're still not even quite done with that. So it is available for pre-sale right now, but it comes out October 1st. And like, we're still doing the edits. And that was a wild experience. So I started last July and it's June right now. So we're like a year in, which is even like quick. I think a lot of people normally take a little bit more time and it's like a 2-year process where we're going to be a little more like a year and a half. So that was a wild ride and definitely a stressor and kind of what I feel like kickstarted some of this emotional eating. And it wasn't even like during the recipe process. It was like when everything was done and written and sent over, and then that editing process began, and that was stressful. So I'm not blaming the book. I'm taking responsibility for my actions, but that was another layer of stress where I was turning to food for sure.
Yeah, I mean, is that coming out on Amazon and Apple and all the normal outlets?
Yeah, so right now it's on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Target, and Walmart.
Cool, yeah. I mean, I've written a few books and I've written about bloods in the context of this way of eating. And it is stressful because it's there in black and white and you want it to be absolutely right. You do want it to be absolutely right. And I've agonized over it, and I've the amount of redrafts has been incredible. And then getting it to an audio book was very interesting as well, because then the person reading it said, oh, there's a couple of spelling errors. And I'm like, oh, I missed that. Oh, wow. It's just little low-level niggly bits. But anyway, we're not here to sell product. We were here to talk about your journey. But yes, that's what you do for a living, and it gives you a bit of stress, then that's interesting to know about. So, Courtney, thank you so much for being on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for chatting with me again.